Okay, we're using their spare labor.
Exactly.
I'm
okay.
assuming, that might make an ass out of you. I mean, but I'm pretty sure the Bay Area stats.
Well, what happens when you say, I presume? Then you make a...
Presume instead of assume?
Yeah. Welcome to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host. Here's our format. A bunch of guys sitting around a bar. There's no bar. Having drinks. There's no drinks either. But we're talking business, and you, the audience, are listening in. The Best of Investing is actually a radio show that has been around since August 2010, and it airs every Saturday on Fox News Radio, 9:10 a.m. at 1 p.m. Now, we're not a political show. We're strictly business, so everyone will be happy with that. Remember, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. Are you ready? Let's go. Welcome. You're listening to the Best of Investing on News Talk 910. You know our show. It's where we present valuable information about real estate, the financial markets, and other economic business of the day. For those of you listening for the first time, here's our format. A few guys sitting around a bar having drinks without the drinks, talking business with you, the audience, listening in. I'm your host, Edward Brown, and I'm pleased to have as my co-host Robert Schiff of RPM Mortgage. Now, Mark Hanf is off today attending an important real estate conference that he'll let us know what happened next week. And today's trivia theme is random questions. I just have a bunch of different random questions.
Random questions.
Our website is bestofinvesting.com. Check us out on Facebook and YouTube by typing Best of Investing Radio Show on Comcast, because we're also on television. Comcast Channel 26 on Saturdays at noon and Sundays at 6 p.m. Now, today's special guest is Vince Sheehan, I got that right, who owns Remax Vision.
That's right, Ed.
Okay, so Vince, tell us.
Remax Vision is a real estate company.
Yeah, well, everyone's heard of Remax.
Oh, maybe it was an eyeglass.
No. Okay, but this is Remax Vision, the real estate company.
We could check your eyes when you come in, Robert, if you like.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Robert, do you want to ask him the first question? Come on, you can do it.
Sure. About the VA.
About the VA. There you go.
What is the? How much can you borrow on a VA loan? Do you have to be an active member? How does it work? And how do you determine how much you have to put down and those kinds of questions?
Because VA stands for Veterans Administration.
A veterans loan.
Yeah. Veterans loan. And most veterans do qualify if they served in wartime with the VA, with whatever branch of the service they're in. The VA loans, I've been in the business a long time, and I haven't done that many, and their limits used to be quite a bit lower. But now, in the last 4 months, I've had 3 different people come to me, and they are buying with VA loans, even here in Marin and Sonoma County. So in Marin, believe it or not, the VA loan limit is $1 million.
Wow.
That's an enhancement for being in the military.
Yeah, really.
You can get a VA loan for $1 million. Amazing.
And I guess being a Boy Scout, that doesn't count as being a veteran.
But now in Sonoma County, the limit is $456,250 for the loan, and then in Napa County, it's $500,000. So that gives you a lot of flexibility when you're buying a home to use your VA eligibility.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Okay, all right, let me get into the second question. All right, because I don't know how many VA loans that we're talking about here, but let's get into this one. My neighbor sold their house, and they said that they needed to have the city building inspector. Now, this is different than a regular inspection that you have for termites and the roof leaks and stuff like that. So they had to have a city building inspector when it was sold. Now, is that required everywhere, or what's going on with that?
Well, here in Marin County, almost every city or town does require a resale inspection by the local building inspector. And in order to do that, you go into your local jurisdiction, the planning or building department, and you usually have to pay anywhere from $150 to $350 to schedule the appointment.
Now is that to pretty much make sure that everything that you've done is with permits, like if you've remodeled a kitchen, that sort of thing?
It's part of it is fact finding for the city to see if you did everything with permits. A lot of it has to do with health and safety violations. One of the big ones is the GFIs in the kitchen and the bathroom for safety, and then smoke detectors, things like that. But they will look for things that weren't done with permits.
But what happens if you have a house that it was built in 1920 and you haven't remodeled it and, there's nothing wrong with the permit type issues, do they suddenly...
They could even still allow knob and tube electricity if that's what you have, as long as it's not any health. They wouldn't necessarily make you update to a whole new electrical system.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Is that
Satisfactory.
they'd say, hey, well, there's no GFIs in here, you have to put them in.
Well,
Right.
GFIs, I think, are required. Just like now you have to have smoke detectors and you have to have carbon monoxide detectors. Everybody that gets a loan now, every time they look and see, the appraiser has to see whether this is something new this year. There have to be carbon monoxide detectors, and if not, you have to put them in. The appraiser has to come back. It's another cost. So they're always more and more. We must be getting very health and safety.
Yeah, well,
very healthy and safe.
The coffers need money.
Yes.
Part of it is it's certain things trigger other things. Like you don't need a permit to get kitchen counters replaced, but if you replace the kitchen counters, then you have to upgrade the wiring and have the GFIs put in. So it's something you really need to check with your specific town, because it does vary. Like in the city of Novato, they have the Wooey area, and that's not an Asian restaurant there on Grand Avenue. The Wooey area is the Wildland Urban Interface, and it's a district created by the Novato Fire District, and so even more restrictions apply in building codes.
I got a permit to change a light bulb one time. It cost me $500. But they just, sorry, I thought it was a scam, but they said no.
How many people did it take, though?
Yes, that's right. That was the question, exactly. So let me ask you one other question here, because this is a kind of a major thing. Bank of America, I heard, was forgiving some of the loans that they'd made in the past. Now, you shared a story with us before we came on that I think the audience is going to really be interested in, because this kind of went beyond all reason.
Yeah, it's almost unbelievable.
It's almost unbelievable. Go ahead.
Yeah, we were in escrow to sell a property, and it was being sold as a short sale, and it had a first loan over $500,000. The second loan was over $400,000.
At two different banks.
Two different banks.
Okay.
And then just 10 days before we closed escrow, the seller...
Well, before you get into that, how
Yeah.
much was the sale price of the house?
It was around $850, in that range.
And
So
about
is that-
$900 was owed on it.
Yeah. Well, no, actually more than 900. It was about $1.1 million was owed. So it was a short sale.
Okay. The
Where-
first was how big?
The first was about 600 to 650.
Okay.
The second
Oh, okay.
was 450.
Okay, there we go. Those are
Okay,
now
sorry.
I'm at $1.1 million.
So
Okay.
the
All right.
sales price was more than the first mortgage, but less than the combination of
That's
the two.
right.
There you go. Thank you
Right.
very much for putting that together for us. Okay.
So what happened 10 days before closing, the seller received a letter from Bank of America that said, as part of the National Department of Justice and State Attorney General settlement with mortgage lenders, that their loan was being forgiven. Now, that was on the second, which was approximately $450. And
Now-
just forgiven,
Now,
not...
had this been triggered by, was B of A contacted because it was a short
That's what I was
sale?
gonna
Was the
ask,
second
yeah.
mortgage, were they contacted? I mean, in a short sale, don't both the first and the second have to be contacted
Uh,
Yeah, because
to
they
ask?
won't reconvey unless they agree to it.
Because I would imagine normally before this happened, the second mortgage holder would say, well, we're not going to be the only ones to forgive debt. If we're going to forgive some, we want the first to,
Exactly.
and they negotiate with each other. Isn't that the way it
this had-
traditionally works?
That's the way it traditionally works. This had absolutely nothing to do with that. It turned out...
Of course, we're assuming that one part of the Bank of America would absolutely know what the other part was doing.
Well, yeah, and remember, the first is a different bank.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
So-
Yes, totally different.
So the interesting thing about this was we did have the short sale approved by the Short Sale Department of Bank of America. And when we first saw this letter, we thought it was some type of a marketing or maybe
Sure.
modification letter.
Yeah, exactly.
We didn't believe it. And the more we investigated it is for real. And we've been told that it went out to about 150,000 borrowers across the country.
Well, what I don't understand is if they had to approve the short sale, and if you're selling the house for about $850, and the first is $650, forgetting commissions and expenses for just a minute here. Sure, B of A would take a haircut, but they would still walk away with $200,000. The seller would get nothing.
Yeah,
Why?
little less than that, but
I
they weren't
understand.
getting money out of it.
I have an impression that the settlement that they came up with, and Kamel has the Attorney General for the state of California, pressured the banks to put a lot more money than they were willing into debt relief for people facing foreclosures in California.
So
There's
they
also-
basically get to show this letter to Kamala
I
Harris
think
and
I
say,
think
look,
there-
we just gave for you
and
$400,000.
there may be certain things in the solution that they came up with, that there's certain dates that by a certain date they have to have done a certain amount of transactions or relieved a certain amount of debt. And because here's an example that you're saying that I mean, if they had time, they would say, well, we're going to get $200,000 in 12 days in this rather
Exactly.
than nothing. So let's go in and do $30,000 relief of debts, and we'll lose this.
Or why don't I just go in there and just go to BFA and just start buying all their seconds at pennies on the dollar. So anyway,
Right.
we're going to cut to a commercial break,
Okay.
and because I want to finish off this story, because this is a very, very good story. I really like this one. Okay, here is the commercial break, the first commercial break. Here's the first trivia question. Again, it's random questions here. In the 1970s, there was a TV show called The Love Boat. Now, which cruise line was featured? And we'll be right back. Excellent. Good. Second. You kept clicking your thing.
I didn't know what you were saying.
Yeah. I'm on here. Click. It's like when Mark sometimes kind of goes like this, you know, because this mic picks up on that stuff. Having fun so far?
Yeah.
I thought I was doing. I thought it was like that's.
I went for a speech class at SF State. They videotaped
Okay.
you, and when I saw my tape, I was sitting there on the podium tapping each time I said something.
Yeah.
That's why I'm
amazing.
trying
You
to
don't
keep
think
my.
about it. Yeah, exactly. You just, I mean, like I have like nervous, twitch like that, but as long as I don't hit anything.
Yeah, but so what I want to tell people is if they get a letter saying, and I want to specify that it's a HELOC type loan and an
Yeah.
equity line of credit.
And it's just B of A.
Well, there's also
Well,
Chase, and
that's
there's some other lenders
Because I know
too.
Chase has called people and said that
Yeah.
they're willing to modify. In fact, I was working. Well, we can go into it.
Yeah. Do they do it only if they see like a sales coming up, or they just?
I think they're just
No.
they just go through this
No.
stuff.
Can I be proactive and call my Wells Fargo?
I
back?
love your idea of putting an ad out and saying if you have a B of A line of credit, I'll buy the debt from you.
You have to buy it from B of A.
No, oh well, well.
You can't buy it from buy it from the owner of the house. I love this guy.
Then they wouldn't relieve it. If you owned it, it wouldn't be relieved though.
Well, you won't buy the house. You got to go to B of A and buy the debt.
Yeah. So how could?
But I don't know if B of A will be that. They have to. Seriously, you have to buy like $50 billion for it. Yeah, but if I buy it at pennies on the dollar, still can't afford it. So what I'll do is come back and I'll just kind of give a synopsis of the story, because in case we get new listeners coming in.
Do you know the answer to the cruise line?
Was it Princess?
Yes.
Wow, golly.
You knew that, right?
No.
Don't you remember the wavy thing?
Oh, that's right.
Captain Stubing?
Yeah.
I remember more of Fantasy Island. Tattoo.
Tattoo.
You're playing. Smiles, everybody, smiles.
You're
Let it
on.
rip, Captain.
Another rip captain. I like that.
Let it
Okay.
happen, Captain.
That was ripping.
Okay,
It
ready?
hurt.
So sorry about that.
Oh,
In a way. Don't give him any pens. Nothing sharp objects.
That's what they did. I want one without scissors.
Well, welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my co-host Robert Schiff of RPM Mortgage, and we're in the studio here with Vince Sheehan from Remax. And when we cut to the first commercial break, we asked this trivia question: the 1970s TV show The Love Boat, which cruise line was it? Vince.
Princess
Cruise. That is correct. Now, I'm going to just refresh the audience's memory here as we went to commercial break.
And ours.
And ours too. Okay, Vince was telling us a story about a person who was selling his house that the value of the house was about $850,000. The first mortgage was about $650,000. Had a second mortgage, which was a line of credit, of about $450,000. And the bank, in second position, this was on a short sale, was willing to walk away completely from the transaction rather than get roughly $200,000, less expensive.
But the bank wasn't doing that as part of the relief of debt on the short sale. It was totally it had nothing to do with the short sale.
No, it had to do
with the settlement from the Attorney General and telling.
Yeah, but how do we know that? I mean, it was triggered by the short sale, wasn't it?
It was not.
It was not. Oh, is it coincidental?
It was coincidental.
Wow, that's good timing.
Yeah,
because in this case, the seller's going to walk away with $100,000+ $200,000 when he's going to walk away with nothing.
A little less.
But roughly what expenses.
The thing is, too, I wanted to mention about that, it applies apparently to the HELOC loans, which are the equity line of credit second loans on properties. And they also had received an offer from Bank of America about a month to 6 weeks before that if they would pay a lesser amount, about $150 on the $450, that then it would be waived. So I just want to alert listeners that if you receive a letter that says we'll forego your $200,000 equity line for $50,000, there is a chance they may just waive it completely down the line, but they would have to check into that.
Yeah, what do? You call the bank and say, hey, I got this letter that says if I pay, in that case, $150,000, you'll get rid of my $400,000 loan. How about if I give you zero? Would you get rid of it?
Yeah, they're not gonna tell you that at that point, but you could ask if it's part of the national settlement with the Department of Justice.
Well, quick question for you on that one example that you gave us. Was the owner of the house current on the mortgage payments?
No.
See, that's the thing, is that, for all of us honest people, well, I don't want to say he's dishonest, but for all of us who are currently paying on our mortgage, I can't imagine the bank's going ahead and...
No, this was meant to keep people in their houses, so I think the timing to this happened, it had a big impact on our sale with the buyers, and we worked something out.
But every time I get in an argument with my wife, she throws me out of the house. That doesn't keep me in the house.
That's true. That's true.
So I have a special doghouse just for me. No, my wife loves me very much and keeps me in the house. Okay.
Well, she figures you love the dog too, so it would be an honor to be in the doghouse. Right?
That is true. There was another question you were going to ask. Did you forget? Robert, you forgot.
Tell me.
Okay, here's the question.
Give me a hint.
Okay, the hint was,
there was the princess
what's going on now? Specifically, you happen to be in Novato, and we're talking about what's going on in Marin. Why don't you talk about just inventory in general?
Just generally in the real estate market, what changes have you seen recently, and where do you think we're headed compared to where we've been?
Well, as far as the market, really, everything really started picking up around February this year. A little bit last fall, but really February, everything changed pretty dramatically. And the inventory levels really have gone, one way they figure it is how many months of inventory. They have a way of figuring it. And now in a lot of communities, we're down to anywhere 2 to 3 months, where it was anywhere from 5 months to a year and a half at one point, I believe.
But the prices haven't spiked up yet, though.
They haven't spiked up, but by virtue of the buyers getting off the fence and buying properties, the prices are actually higher.
I've had the recent, for getting purchase loans, people coming to me that are buying places. Most of the deals I've been involved in recently have been multiple offers, and most of them, the sales price has been higher than the list price, and that certainly wasn't the case the last few years.
Yeah, but they're still down considerably from where they were in
there's
2006.
still some percentage of what they, the one in San Rafael that was, they listed it in the 7s, it sold in the 8s, and the last time it had sold was 1.1 or 1.2 million.
Exactly.
So we're still off of the top, but
but at least it's coming off the bottom now.
Yeah, and it's,
I have some statistics here that in '07 the average sales price was about $1.2 million in Marin, and that includes everything from condos up to $10 million homes.
Sure.
And
Is that the average?
That was the average.
Mean,
No.
median, mode, or mean?
Whatever.
Okay.
Whatever it was. It was the average.
I forgot all my
Okay,
statistics.
in 2011, it was 848, and now this year it's 869. So it is increasing again.
About 3%.
Yeah.
See, that's kind of a normal type thing, 3 to 5%.
Right. That's more normal than the crazy years.
Yeah.
But there's still, I mean, didn't we hear last week, Mark had some, like 20% of the people that own houses nationwide are upside down, underwater?
And then a lot of people who are buying houses are buying them for all cash.
They are,
That's-
and because of the return on their money. It's a good investment, not in the higher price ranges necessarily, but and just specifically in Novato, Petaluma, probably some of San Rafael, if you can buy something between $400,000 and $500,000, that you can get a good return on your money if you pay cash.
By renting it out.
Yes.
Yeah, but I guess what you're getting at, though, is if you put a mortgage on it, you're going to be paying 3, 4, or 5%, and that's what you have to counterbalance.
That counterbalances, but even with mortgages, that it's a lot closer to cashing rather than having a large negative on properties where at the peak of the market it wasn't even coming close. So now you can make an
I
investment.
mean, the other way to do it is if you could get enough of a return, you want to leverage it and buy a few houses. But again, you're looking at, it's to me, I like being debt free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of the
I'm not there
investors,
yet, but
there's
I like it.
something statistics at a seminar I went to, and about 70% of the investors were actually paying cash in these market levels for homes.
For like 400,000?
Yeah,
300,000?
around anywhere 300,000 to 500,000.
Where were they getting all that
You
money?
mean that 70% of the sales were to investors?
That of the investors that were buying, about 70% of them were paying cash because they can only get a 0.5% to 2%
And do you
of
think
savings.
that's in areas like where the average sales price is 400,000, or areas like Stockton or Vallejo where it might be
250.
or less,
Or less,
150
yeah.
or less?
I think it would work in a lot of those areas too.
But you found that it was a little bit more in the higher end?
Well,
Maybe people
in our area, see, we get higher rents though. So I don't know when you go out further away from the city if the demand is as high for the rentals.
Well, I guess those people, maybe they took the money out of the stock market.
Oh, I'm
You know.
sure. Or you can take it out of, in some instances, you can take it out of IRAs if you have a self-directed IRA. Not that it's
That's true.
certainly not as safe as a
A
T-bill or
Yeah.
the mattress, but
Okay.
pretty safe at these levels.
Okay, hey guys, we're going to go to a quick commercial break here. When we come back, we're going to get into a little bit more fun stuff of what's going on. Robert's definitely got a few very interesting economic type questions for us here. Okay, here is the second commercial break trivia question. This is another hard one. Which 1968 Hot Wheels car was introduced before the actual car was introduced by General Motors? And we will be right back. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Robert Schiff of RPM Mortgage. Mark Hanf is off today, and we're also in the studio here with Vince Sheehan from Remax Vision. When we cut to the second commercial break, we asked this hard trivia question. Which 1968 Hot Wheels car was introduced before the actual car was introduced by General Motors? And I got to tell you, it was not the Ford Pinto. Oh, that would have been Ford anyway.
And it wasn't the Corvair.
Or the Gremlin.
No, but you're close, though. It was the custom Corvette.
Oh.
That's kind of
See,
interesting.
I was guessing the Camaro, but a custom Corvette.
A custom Corvette.
68 custom Corvette.
Yeah.
What year did the AMC Pacer come in?
1976, I believe.
After the Nash Rambler.
Yeah. Boy, quick funny story here. I had a friend who actually had a 1974 Ford Pinto, and he lived on this hill that was hard grade one way, easy grade the other way. And literally, his car could not make it up the hard grade, so he always had to go around the mountain, basically, and come up his street the other way. Robert, we received an email for you that says here, are you independent or do you favor one lender over another? Now, this person has obviously heard you on the show, so you have to tell the rest of the audience.
We fund loans for people for 1 to 4 residential units in California and about 10 other states. And we can fund the loan ourselves, and then the RPM will sell it off to a whole list of banks, some of which you've heard of and some of which you haven't, or we can sell it directly to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. And I have the choice of either taking the loan directly to RPM. For instance, I can take it to RPM and know they're going to sell the loan to Chase. Or I can look at Chase or some other bank and find out what their rates are and how they are fitting into the parameters for the loan we're looking at. And I have a choice of going to the bank or going outside the bank to other banks or some credit unions. And each time a client comes to me and wants a loan, that's my process to go find out where I'm going to get the best deal for those people.
Yeah, and since you're totally independent and
yes.
you are like the smartest mortgage broker, banker we know.
I've been doing it for a while, and I'm pretty knowledgeable about what I do.
Yeah.
Other people are too, but I'm pretty good at it.
Is that 1957 you started?
Oh, let's see. Oh, you mean when I was born? Yes.
Yeah. So basically then people just, in effect, it's sort of like a one-stop shop. Really, they can just call you because then you can pretty much go out and shop to figure out which.
Absolutely, and I've been doing this for 20 years or so, and the way you have a stable, real business is to get referrals, and the way you get referrals is to have happy clients. The way you have happy clients is to find the best possible loan for them.
The rib bone's connected to them.
And I guess just to give, as a realtor, you have a choice to send somebody to a bank, just one lender, or to somebody like Robert that has a lot more flexibility. It can work either way, but with Robert, he can put the people in a program that works for them. Doesn't matter which lender he uses.
Yeah, I was going to say, because even maybe Chase might have the best rate, but rather than go to Chase, nothing personal against Chase, but rather than going Chase directly, go to you, and you might find that Chase does have the best rate for that particular individual.
That's right. There was one bank that always had the best rates, and we found out their nickname was Great Rate No Loan. Because they would never close a loan. Yes, it wasn't.
How'd they stay in business?
Well, they didn't.
Oh, there you go. Okay, that makes sense. You know, one quick thing here I saw in the paper about, changing subject for a minute here, about foreclosures down sharply. Now, I was thinking that the reason may be because people who were going to get foreclosed had already been foreclosed on. And so there weren't too many more people left to foreclose on.
I think also that the banks...
Because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are very curious about that specific... obviously, you're not going to give personal information out of any of your clients, but about that B of A letter that talked about getting rid of the second mortgage.
Is that Marin's Finest? Does that have an apostrophe in it?
And no apostrophe on the web address.
Okay, guys, we're going to cut to our third commercial break here. Here's the trivia question. Again, this one, I don't know how hard it is. The Oakland A's had 3 Rookies of the Year in a row. 1986, 87, and 88. Name all 3. And hopefully you can name them in order, but that's okay. You don't have to. See, I think most people know the first 2 and they'll forget about the last one. We will be right back because Robert, when we get back, Robert's got some really interesting economic information that's going to be affecting the entire country. You're not going to want to miss it. And we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Robert Schiff of RPM Mortgage. Again, Mark Hoff will be back with us next week. We're also in the studio here with Vince Sheehan, who owns Remax Vision. When we cut to the third commercial break, we asked this trivia question. The Oakland A's had 3 Rookies of the Year in a row, 1986, 87, and 88. Vince, you thought you knew the answer.
Brad Pitt in Moneyball.
Brad Pitt in Moneyball. No, that is not correct.
I don't know.
And it wasn't Babe Ruth.
It wasn't Babe Ruth.
No.
It wasn't Raleigh Fingers.
No, it wasn't. Come on, 1980s.
Yeah,
ready? Jose Canseco. It was 86.
86.
Mark McGuire.
Mark McGuire's 1987. And Walt Weiss in 1988.
Oh,
Now,
God, that is amazing.
okay, we promised the audience that when we came back, Robert, you were going to have some very interesting economic information for us. Take it away.
Take it away, and the clue word is sequestration.
Sequestration. I used to ride horses, so I know
That's
about sequestration.
equestrian.
Oh, that's equestrian. Oh, never mind.
Sequestration.
Wasn't that on Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea?
Or wait a minute.
Sequestration.
Or is this Ryan
a sequest? Oh, no.
No, that's Ryan
And when you're
sequestration.
sequestered, wasn't that when in grade school when you were sequestered and you had to go sit in the corner?
I don't know.
But at any rate,
Okay.
earlier this year, there was a big fight in Congress about raising the federal debt limit, and the result of that was that everybody finally, after much duress, agreed to raise the debt limit with the provision that there would be a special committee that would get together and figure out what to do to make sure that we didn't have to raise the federal debt limit again, as we've been doing for the last decade or 2 decades, and come up with some plan to reduce the debt. And they were under the sort of acts, executioner's acts, that either they would come up with a plan, or if they didn't, then January the 1st, there would be a huge change in the tax laws.
So they all had to play nice in the sandbox.
They had to play nice in the sandbox, and they just could not find a way to do
They
it.
couldn't play nice in the sandbox.
Couldn't play nice.
They couldn't play well with others.
So what happened is, unless they learn, and our representatives learn a way to play nice in the sandbox, coming January the 1st, there's huge changes in the tax law. There's huge budget cuts that are not open to negotiation. They will happen January the 1st. There's just within the federal government, they said that there's going to be tax cuts that are the equivalent of over $1 trillion, sweeping across almost every part of the federal government, including
give an
defense.
Okay. Well, now tax cuts or budget cuts?
Well, budget cuts.
Okay, budget cuts. Okay.
And some of the ones that may not be the largest amounts of money but apply to the most people are, a lot of people have been unemployed, and the government has been extending their unemployment benefits. January the 1st, that will stop. So everybody that's on extended unemployment will not receive unemployment money after January the 1st unless we can learn how to play in the sandbox.
And what, extend the benefits some more?
No, they
or else they'll
else they'll continue to extend them. But
it can't extend them indefinitely.
There'll be a big cut in Medicare and the things that Medicare will pay for, and who's going to provide the Medicare benefits. There's a lot of the tax deductions that are going to expire. For instance, I think the estate tax is going to go back to what it was. Anything over $1 million, I think, on January the 1st will be taxable.
Yeah,
and that's something like a 50% tax. So there's huge.
So as of right now, that's happening January 1st, unless they reach a new agreement.
That's legislated. Yes. That's,
okay.
That's,
what's that going to do to the economy?
They say here that add it all up, and we're taking policy changes equal to about 4% of the total economy. So if that happens, that's not real good for the seeing us get out of the recession and heading towards a better economy.
But keep raising the debt ceiling isn't the answer either, though, is it? Just keep printing money?
Well, I'm not sure that raising debt ceiling and printing money are the same thing, and we've been raising the debt ceiling for decades and decades, and I really don't know if raising the debt ceiling and having the federal debt be a smaller amount of the total numbers in the economy, and that may not be a bad thing. I think if you look and see what countries are thriving and what countries have certain levels of debt, they don't necessarily go together. That the countries with the least debt.
What's a quadrillion here and a quintillion there?
Suddenly it becomes money.
It suddenly becomes money, exactly.
Does it affect any of the congressmen's pay or pensions?
Now, what have you been drinking?
I want a job where I keep giving myself a raise all the time. Nobody can say anything.
They'll just have to get a bigger sandbox.
Well, that to me is one of the things. The first thing that should happen is to vote people in who absolutely have to promise and actually follow through. And if they don't, they get thrown out. Where they lower their pay. Most of these people who go to Congress are rich anyway. They don't need.
I think almost everyone in Congress is a millionaire.
Yeah, and that's not enough, right? They have to have free postage when they leave and all this other kind of fun stuff.
So it's more of a hobby.
Yeah, well, we were talking about this off air that the original founding fathers, when they were done in Congress, they went back to farming and all that other stuff. In fact, didn't you say that they actually paid to become a congressman?
Well,
of course, they kind of do that now anyway.
And they were certainly not doing it as a way of solidifying their economic future.
Yeah, it wasn't a
and
retirement
cer-
situation
yeah,
for them.
Certainly now, if you're in Congress, there probably are some lobbyists knocking at your door, and probably future after your elected time in Congress goes by. There have been laws that said that you can't become a lobbyist within several years after you've been in Congress, but there are other things that they can do in between those couple of years. So
I can only imagine.
I think so.
Vince, any last words before we... Oh, you said you had a quick real estate joke.
Oh, yeah.
You have about 45 seconds. Go ahead.
Yeah,
this is not
The real
R-
estate-
This is not R-rated.
no, not R-rated at all. Obviously, the real estate business is a little competitive, so one broker decided to open up on a certain corner, and he put up a sign that said "Best Agents," and he started to do pretty well. So on the other corner, another guy opened, and it said "Lowest Commissions." So a third guy opened right in between them, and it said "Enter here."
There you go. Exactly. I love that. Thank you. First of all, Vince, thank you very much for joining us in the studio here.
Thank you.
Okay, thoughts for the day. Just 20 seconds of fuel remained when Apollo 11's lunar module landed on the moon. I'd say that was cutting it just a
Wow.
bit
Is
close.
that true?
That's apparently true.
Amazing.
It says it here on the piece of paper, so it must be true, right? Welcome. You're listening to the Best of Investing on News Talk 910. You know our show. It's where we present valuable information about real estate, the financial markets, and other economic business of the day. And for those of you listening for the first time, here's our format. A few guys sitting around a bar talking business with you, the audience, listening in. I'm your host, Edward Brown, and I'm pleased to have as my co-host Mark Hahn from Pacific Private Money, California's fastest growing private lender, and Lou Botmal of LPL Financial. And today's trivia theme is movies with numbers in the title.
Oh, nice.
Okay, you guys will get most
I got a
of these,
couple of
I
those.
think.
I
Okay,
got some already.
our website is bestofinvesting.com. Check us out on Facebook and YouTube by typing Best of Investing Radio Show. And we are also on television, Comcast Channel 26 on Saturdays at noon and Sundays at 6 p.m. Now, today's special guest is Scott Ingels, who is a police officer, and he's going to share some helpful hints regarding identity theft. And he is actually a certified investigator with the Robert Presley Institute of Criminal Investigation with a specialty in identity theft investigations.
And that
Scott,
sounds official.
that sounds very official, yes. And for those of you who are just listening to the radio, he is a real police officer and he has a real gun. So watch your P's and Q's, boys and girls, on the show here. Okay,
Yes.
Scott, so first question is, what is ID theft really and what constitutes ID theft?
So ID theft can best be described as the use of your personal identifying information, and we can go into what that is, for an unlawful purpose. And what constitutes it is anytime somebody other than yourself uses that personal information for any type of unlawful means, whether it's to benefit from goods or services, to obtain credit in your name, and obviously it's not you that's doing it.
So you're working with it, not necessarily in the realm of what a lot of people know as identity theft today, which is like on the internet, but stolen checks and there's all kinds of everyday ways that people do that. Is that not true?
That's correct, and we as a patrolman with the San Rafael Police Department, we deal with all kinds of issues. We're typically the first group of people that get called regarding an identity theft issue, and whether we obtain the report ourselves or we process that information and send it on to another agency that's going to be doing something about it, it is what it is. But we typically are the clearinghouse, the first level that people deal with.
See, I tried to show up to the Giants game as Pablo Sandoval, but I'm not from Venezuela and I'm not over 250 pounds. I didn't get in.
And you can't hit a home run like that 3 times in a row.
How do you know?
Big assumption there. Big assumption on my
Hey, listen,
part.
I play T-ball in my time. Okay. You had a question, Lou?
The question I have is, what is PII? What's that's personal information? That's
So, and I'm
How do you
exactly.
protect yourself?
I brought reference material to look at this, but personal identifying information, commonly referred to as your PII, is anything either a name, a phrase, a passcode, a number that uniquely identifies you in the world, whether that's with an organization, with a banking institution, with your gym. For instance, your gym number, if you belong to a gym, could be considered personal identifying information. And the use of it, that information for any kind of unlawful means, whether it's to, say, accept goods or services from a gym, whether that's to receive credit from a credit card company or a bank, that can be considered your personal identifying information. So everybody knows the big common ones, which are your social security number, your driver's license number,
Date of birth.
Date of birth, correct. But that could also be just your full name in and of itself. That could be your address. That could be, again, like a membership number for, say, the gym or an online retailer. Any of that information qualifies as your personal identity.
So when I file my tax return and I say, I'm scared that you're going to use this for ID theft and that don't put in my social security number, I don't think they're going to go for that.
It's possible, but I could read you off what's here. It also includes unique biometric data, including other unique physical representation, unique electronic data,
DNA.
stuff like that. Exactly. I mean, you could take that. Unique biometric could be anything, correct? We hear about retina scanning, we hear about fingerprints, we hear about DNA.
I had just mentioned about the IRS. There was a time, just a couple of years ago, when you'd write the check to the Internal Revenue Service, and some people would just shorten it to IRS. Well, some lady at the IRS was taking the I and changing it to an M, so that it said MRS and then Mrs. and then she'd fill in her name, and she was cashing checks that were supposed to be to the IRS. So they changed that. And they go write it out to the U.S. Treasury.
My big question is, if someone gets hold of your information and uses it fraudulently, what should we do? I don't.
So the first thing you should do is always monitor all of your bank accounts. And the first bit of advice on that would be you always have to know where your money is. You always have to know where your credit cards are. You always have to know what you have. One of the worst things a police officer can hear when they show up and they get this call, hey, what do I do, is, okay, well, tell me what's missing. And the answer is met with the answer is met with a blank stare. It's everything. You have to know where all of your stuff is. And then you pass that information off to your local agency. The way the penal code reads is that the local agency, or wherever the victim is, the person whose personal identifying information was used, is required to at least complete a report, if that's it. Now, typically, your information is not going to be used in your local jurisdiction. You live here, say, in San Rafael, but your information is used down in the greater Los Angeles area.
Well, mine was stolen some years back, and it happened to be in Kentucky.
Yeah, correct. And that's out of state and even out of country is very common.
Well, these guys must have been professional, too, because they actually, apparently, the guy went into a Lowe's department store and tried to set it up with a California driver's license with all my information, but a Kentucky address.
Is definitely a clue for the Lowe's that was out there that, hey, this doesn't look quite right.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Is this something that's growing in nature, or has it always been kind of like a problem?
It's since the beginning of time, I believe, people have been trying to get away with, say they're somebody else or get away with it. In the digital age where so much information is transmitted over digital media, there's definitely an increase. I've been a law enforcement officer for 14 years, and there's been a marked increase from when I started till now, and I believe that's the prevalence of the ability to do these transactions over the cell phone, over computer, over smartphones, and just over wireless media.
Well, you remember the movie The Man in the Iron Mask with Richard, right? There was identity theft right there.
Well, it seems to me that it's with technology, it's getting easier and easier to steal one's personal information and conduct identity theft. Is that not so? And what do we need to do more so today than ever before to guard against that?
So it's a fair assumption to say that with the more you use it in public, right? Smartphones are a perfect example. Along with the smartphone, you used to write your check at your kitchen table or in your office where nobody was watching. Now you're conducting those same transactions in public, at a restaurant, in line at the movie theater, with all of this information that's readily available. So you want to follow the basic principles. Everything should have some sort of passcode, and it should be a difficult passcode. And then, for instance, when you're typing that passcode into your phone, you want to make sure nobody's looking over your shoulder while you're doing it, or you're not speaking out loud while you're actually typing your passcode in.
Well, a question for you, because I thought about this. Okay, typical situation, you go to a restaurant, pay your bill, you give your credit card, and they walk away with it, do the transaction. What's to stop them from just taking a notepad, and now they have the front and the back with all the information,
Not much stopping them, yeah.
Right, correct, not much. Your diligence in watching, you can sometimes watch the person walk away or come back with it. If anything seems out of the ordinary, make a mental note of it, and then you should always be monitoring your credit card activity. People tend to look at their credit cards or their bank statements once a month when the bills are due.
Sure.
And it doesn't take a long time, and actually technology's made it considerably easier to do it, is you should constantly be monitoring your
Or sometimes what happens, they'll call you if they see something strange.
Right. Is it true that I heard this? A lot of police officers, because they're involved in this side of the business, actually use more cash in transactions. You find yourself and other police officers doing that more so than.
Yeah, we all have our methods of getting it done. I think cops tend to be more paranoid than most people. Absolutely.
And with that, we're going to cut to our first commercial break. Scott, stay with us. We got a few more things to talk about identity theft here. And here is our first trivia question. And again, the theme is movies with numbers in the title. What was the name of the movie that starred Cliff Robertson as John F. Kennedy regarding the boat he commanded? We will be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hoff of Pacific Private Money and Lou Botmal of LPL Financial. When we get to the first commercial break, we asked this first trivia question. What was the name of the movie that starred Cliff Robertson as John F. Kennedy regarding the boat he commanded? Anyone?
PT something.
109.
PT 109. The two of you get together, you get the right answer. Very good. And we are in the studio here with Scott Ingels, who is a police officer who is an expert in identity theft. And Mark, you have a question for me.
Yeah, I have differing opinions on this, whether I should or should not be using my debit card on transactions, both online and in person. Do you have any opinion about that, or do you have any recommendations that you make to your clients?
There's no indication that the use of one type of credit card versus another, a debit being that the money comes directly from your checking account, versus a credit card, which is a revolving account that you reconcile at the end of the month or something along those lines. So there's no indication that there's any one is more susceptible than the other. The biggest issue is that you know when you use your card and how you used it, say a dollar amount, a retailer. Some advice we do give is typically people carry more than one card or have more than one sort of access account, and use one for online retailing, use the other for in-store purchases. That way you're splitting or minimizing your risk across different cards and different locations is a suggestion that can be given. For instance, I use one card specifically for online purchases, I use another in the store.
Well, I would think that you'd actually
That's
be
smart.
more susceptible because just the more cards that you have, that's
Well,
not the case?
it is possible because you're putting more of your information out there. However, you're not revealing that information to any one point of compromise. And at the break, we were talking about how that credit information is obtained. It's often referred to as a point of compromise, and whether that's at the point of sale, say at the cash register. I believe you had mentioned when you're at a restaurant, you pass your card over, and they swipe it twice. Are they using a skimmer in their hand to accept your information there? Is this a point of compromise where the bank actually suffered a hack at their internal server? Or is this literally somebody's using a pen to write down the information on a piece of paper?
Well, yeah, because Barnes & Noble just had an issue with tampered keypads or something, people stealing their pens.
Absolutely, and those stories go around. Yeah, I had not specifically heard about Barnes & Noble, but the point of sale compromise, or hearing that say a given national retailer, even an international retailer, suffered some sort of breach at the server level is very common now.
Okay, and besides the typical Nigerian email, what other kind of scams? Which I'm still waiting for my millions, by the way.
You won the lottery. Here's $5,000. Return $2,500 of it. Correct?
Something along those lines.
Yeah. So there are two main ones that we deal with just very commonly that just never seem to go away. And one is the lottery scam, where you'll get a letter in the mail saying that you won $5,000. Please send us your personal information. And people do. They will send out their name or their address, and a couple days later they'll get a letter and a check in the mail, and it says, "Hey, it's $5,000, but you only won $2,500. Please deposit the whole thing and then send me a check for $2,500 or some given amount." And people will return it. And then by the time that their check does not clear, bounces, right, you're $2,500.
So yeah, listen, I'll wait 6 months to make sure it
Right.
clears, and then I'll send it. The thing is, with the internet and Google, I'm wondering why they have to get personal information that way. It seems like it's so easy to just Google and get information.
They can get information that way, but it's typically it's faster to go directly to the source, correct? And that which brings up the second way that information commonly gets out there. It's known as phishing. Your bank is not going to call you and start asking for your personal information over the phone or over the internet. You're not going to get it. Your bank is not going to send you an email that says, "Hey, we need your password, we need your social security number to verify who you are." Okay,
Yeah.
Banks don't operate in that method. Legitimate banks don't operate in that method. So if you get an email or you get a phone call asking for information that just doesn't sound right, they're asking for your password, your driver's license. "Oh, hey, we just want to verify who you are." you can go ahead and hang up on that one.
Well, interestingly enough, when I was the victim of identity theft, and I got a call from Lowe's, and the guy had said, is this Edward Brown from California? And I go, yeah, and then he said he wanted to verify some information, and I said, well, I'll tell you what, you tell me what information you have, and then I'll clarify it.
Correct.
So then he was able to say, well, this is what I think your birth date is and your driver's license number. And well, okay, now I'm listening seriously. What's going on?
Exactly. And you never, you would never back up that information. Let's say he throws out a birthday and it happens to be right. A good thing would be, okay, just say
Next.
okay or continue or next, exactly. Or hey, ask the person on the phone, do you have a phone number that I can call you back at? When they provide a phone number, use the internet, use the phone book, use the number on the back of your ATM or your credit card, and verify that the number they gave you actually matches up with something with your bank.
Well, I had gotten one of those faxes where it was like for a really cheap price, you get to have all these great vacations. And so the funny thing, I just said, I really, honestly, I just got to check this out, just for fun. I called the guy. He sounded like he was from some African country, but he spoke English. And then he started asking, or he was telling me all this great stuff. He says, listen, go ahead, check us out. And he gave me the specific website. And when I did, there was all this good, legitimate stuff. And then when I basically said, well, I'll get back to you. I went back into the internet and just Googled the company that he said. And then all this scam.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because it's easy to create a web page that looks legitimate, and they can post that up the same way anybody could. But when you go out to the internet and you go to a search engine of your choice and you do it, people will talk about it, or it won't come up, or it won't match, or there'll be something.
Well, here's the other thing is, like I got something from Chase, and again with their logo and all that, and it looked a little
really
funny.
Clever these days.
Yes.
The phishing scams.
Absolutely. So what I did was I called Chase,
Yeah.
and they said, no, thank you so much for not giving the information. We're the victim of identity theft ourselves. So to speak.
And what do we do? I talked to a client one time, went through this, and I guess there's an FTC website or
FTC.gov, the Federal Trade Commission, and they're probably the most well-known clearinghouse on information and methods by which they have the forms on there, affidavits of forgery, national reporting forms that you can complete. If you Google identity theft, it's typically one of the first ones that comes up as a.
So see your police officer first, then go to FTC, or what?
I would recommend going to ftc.gov and reading as much information as you can. And same thing about the internet. You should always get your information, if you can, from more than one source. So the FTC is one website. There are tons of identity theft websites out there that you can look at, read the information. You'll start seeing a lot of it, the same stuff over and over again, just to reinforce what's going on.
And make sure you do FTC, not FTD, or otherwise flowers will show up. And so the other thing is to call various credit reporting agencies.
Correct. You can always check your credit. There's three main ones that are used, and that's Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Anybody who's applied for a home loan or a car loan has most likely become familiar with this process. You can check your credit history with them. Again, it can be done online. It can be, it can be done over the phone, but they'll be able to tell you if you have any fraudulent accounts open in your name.
Yeah, and I think if I'm not mistaken, I think you get one free per year. But if you're the victim of identity theft, you can get more.
Correct, and it's one free per year per bureau. So if you were to spread that out, say, at 3 1/3 months, you could theoretically check your credit history with each one every 3 months and that's, affecting your credit score. And if you were to ask people what does affect your credit score, you're going to get a million different answers about how it actually works.
That one won't affect it, right? That's not a hard pull.
And I think that depends. It depends on who it depends on who you talk to. So when I give advice to people that come talk to me, I say, hey, this is the way it's been explained to me in the trainings that I've been to is if you do one every 3 months and spread them out between each credit bureau, you should be good.
Well, especially if it's...
I could rely on your guys' expertise on that to know whether or not it hits your credit score.
Well, I don't think it does, because you're the one checking on your own. You're not, let's say, a car dealership, third party, trying to say we're trying to extend credit. So I don't think that part does. And then, see, when I was a victim, I think what they did was they automatically put a 90-day fraud alert, which effectively said they won't allow any new credit unless they call my cell phone.
Correct.
Yeah, which is really smart.
Correct. And then that 90 days can be extended for several years with typically written authorization, and they'll direct you through how to do that.
And could you talk also about children, identity theft regarding children, like with their social security numbers? I heard there's a big scam going on with prisoners doing it.
It comes up from time to time. Children typically make, for somebody doing the identity theft for a suspect, children presents a unique opportunity, and that is the child has a clean background to begin with because there's nothing ever going on there.
Sure.
And then what parent goes out and checks for their children's credit history?
Yeah, so for years it
So
might
it
not
can
get
go unnoticed.
Babies are us, man. That's where.
Yeah, really.
Correct.
Loading up on blankets.
So that that type of activity or that type of behavior can go on for extended period of time without anybody knowing about it.
Okay. Any other thoughts, wisdom you want to share with us
Always,
about IDEF?
one of the biggest things, the advice that we give that can't impress upon people enough is that you have to know what your cards are, you have to know your numbers, and you have to know where your money is. Yeah, okay? Make sure you take the time to know it and look online and actually monitor it. The worst thing ever, and I had one victim who I told her, I said, hey, you've been paying this guy's cable bill for 3 months. And she's like, okay, sounds good. She never checked her credit card for that rotating cable bill. Get a call about a year later, she's like, I'm still paying this guy's cable bill. And I said, yes, I told you were paying his cable bill. You have to call your company and make sure that you are no longer paying for that address or however. And it was just somebody else had moved into the house, plugged their TV in,
Sure.
and there it goes.
Life's
But
good.
You got to know. You can't just open the bill anymore and just let it go.
And
You
then
have to look
that
at it.
actually wasn't identity theft. She just never stopped paying on the bill.
She never. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't claim anything. He just got the benefit of it. Scott, thank you very much for joining us in the studio here and giving us great thoughts for identity theft. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown. We're wishing you the best of investing. So long.